So I am your host, Christina Gutierrez, been with Be the Change HR for almost 5 years now, and I have the pleasure of introducing the speakers today. My fearless leader, and I mean that literally, LeiLani Quiray, who is the CEO and founder of Be the Change HR. Fun fact of LeiLani, she loves to compete in Ironman competitions and ice climb because, why not? And secondly, we have the pleasure of having Angela Marturano, founder of Orchid Holistic Search, who, fun fact, she currently resides in Costa Rica and she is also a farmer. So I'm going to hand it over to these wonderful women and take it from there.
I want to hear what you farm though, Angela. What are you growing this season or
Oh my
annual?
gosh, I'm harvesting a ton of alverjas, which are shell peas right now, which has been super fun. It also gives my son and I a chore to do together after school, which he loves. And it's the tail end of coffee season. So coffee is a big part of what we grow. Don't really sell much of it yet. We're building that out, but it's a delight to grow it. We grow bananas, plantains, chayote, yuca, rice, beans, corn, all of the things that you typically find in Central American gardens. So
Awesome.
Fantastic. Well, you take it. I'm going to actually put Angela's LinkedIn in the chat. I was going to save this for the end, but based on what she just said, obviously she has a wealth of information. She's our go-to in the natural product CPG industry for recruiting, especially because of her heart-centered philosophy. And if you follow her on LinkedIn, you will see all the things she's just talking about. So if she's harvesting something, she'll show you what's going on in her farm in Costa Rica. All right.
thank you. Well, I'm so glad to be joining, and it's always a pleasure to chat about something that's super near and dear to my heart. Recruitment, hiring, building teams, building aligned teams. But not only that, taking some concepts that we see in nature and applying them to hiring. Nature can be such a beautiful teacher in so many ways. For those of you who aren't familiar with regenerative agriculture, regenerative is a word that I'm going to be talking about a lot today. The goal here is to plant a seed, to share knowledge, to make hiring processes healthier and our business ecosystems healthier. So, in terms of agricultural practices, I'm going to share two scenarios. Scenario one, dirt is seeded with one type of crop, it's consistently sprayed with Roundup, it's a monoculture, chemicals are used to keep creatures away, there's rigid protocols, high-tech systems. We do the same thing repetitively year after year, week after week, month after month. And so in terms of this, the long-term impact is that soil is depleted, no nutrients want to grow, no nutrients are able to thrive, and plants and creatures and weeds tend to just all fall away. Just eventually the entire field is bought on the cheap to roll into another farm. Scenario two, you've got this beautiful garden. Soil's worked, tended carefully, monitored to understand natural makeup. It's built and fed with a diversity of natural inputs to produce beautiful, rich, healthy soil foundation. It's monitored, it's tested. We're actually preparing it to be flexible and adaptable to meet growth plans and receive bounty. So this is really a dynamic and rich environment where seeds are nurtured, abundant, thriving in a multitude of ways. And over time, this is a beautiful, healthy ecosystem. This farm looks like a Garden of Eden. It takes more thought and care, but it's more abundant, and it's not at the expense of the community. So as I talk about this, can we think about cultures that we've maybe seen in the workplace that are maybe one way or maybe the other way? So that's really what, I think of sort of as the foundation for building regenerative systems through hiring. So, the benefits are, like you see on the slide, enhanced resilience, sustainable growth, resource efficiency and abundance, and positive social impact and diversity. And then we'll go to the next slide. Expanding upon this is this next concept. I don't know if anyone's familiar with seed to seed production. That means basically we're allowing some of our vegetables or fruits to go to seed, harvest those seeds, and use them again for the next season, right? And this is obviously valuable because it saves money. We've got seeds that are doing well, right? And so when we apply this thought process to growing our team, we're really thinking about how we can build a culture that's creating legacy for our company and building like a beautiful best in class team, best in class employer brand, and making people better in the meantime. So in this concept, the seed is the new hire. You root them through onboarding, cultural integration of the team, mission, vision, values. Then they start growing STEM. So projects, right? Handling something tangible like opening new accounts or channels or strategy or innovation. Branch is where they're developing things that are being incorporated into other projects that are integrated. They may flower, so that's the external presence of the internal brand. Maybe they're invited as industry experts to speak, be on podcasts, showcase what they've done for the brand. As they're fruiting, they're mentoring, lifting up others, developing the org at a higher level, replacing themselves through things like succession planning, and having a unified team. And then they turn to seed. And at this point, it can be bittersweet, right? Because then at that point, they're typically maybe moving on to another organization, but having left something beautiful in their place. So this is the essence that's attractive to other companies, that you're able to actually grow people who are going to go on to do better things even outside of your organization.
And the antithesis to this, right, is if it is not regenerative, whether it is farming or in your own workplace, what happens when you don't tend the soil right? Like everything's just going to die. And then you have to keep replanting it. And how are you going to feed yourself, which is also your company? So this is such a beautiful analogy.
Yeah, thank you. And then it takes a lot of problem solving to do it in a way that's like healthy and really in tune with employees. And as you know, Leilani, I mean, watching you build your company as well as helping other companies build theirs, there's something so special to a culture that really listens and is in tune with what that team and that state of the business is in need of. And really, so it can take a lot more effort in the short term, but the long-term dividends are huge versus just kind of running people through an organization and doing the same types of things and playbooks that every other company does. And so that kind of takes us to culture. I think that would be the next slide here. What is culture? So it's super multifaceted. It refers to shared values, beliefs, norms, and practices that characterize a specific company. It's basically the personality and character of the company. So it shapes how the employees interact, make decisions, carry out work, and its behavior emanates from the top, right? From the founder, the CEO, the GM, and that person should ideally be crafting consciously the culture that they want on day one and before their hires. So, but oftentimes leaders will say, we have a good culture. Well, what does that mean? I think we do need to, as a business ecosystem, be better at defining what is that. And so, like I mentioned, there are some aspects to culture, mission, vision, and having a statement, talking about purpose and goals. Leadership styles, how do the leaders lead? What are their communication styles and how do they make decisions? How are there opportunities for feedback across levels? Benefits. So benefits sometimes are just words on a paper. Sometimes they can be super meaningful and fun. They can be perks. They can be wellness benefits. They can be book clubs. I know Leilani's organization has
Yeah.
a lovely book
We
club.
read 4 books by April 1st
Yeah,
this year.
right. Cranking them out.
Yeah.
Flex time, PTO, how you do that, philanthropy days, team stand-ups, educational reimbursements. The list can go on, but having benefits that are meaningful. And then, so values. So talking a little bit about values, and I'll kind of share, sometimes a company can put a value statement on a website, right? Most companies do. Ours happen to be transparency, flexibility, and responsiveness. I think maybe something that goes missing from some organizations is how are those values worked in every day in practice? So for us, transparency means sharing, literally transparency, the good, the bad, the ugly, right? For us, when we're making a match between a company and a person, we want to be as authentic and transparent as possible because that helps us in the end identify the right person who's going to help solve the company's problems. Flexibility. So for us, that means sort of fluidity on search parameters. We work with a lot of startups. So sometimes a company says, I need a VP, but maybe they need a CMO, but maybe they need a senior director. And with that said, they might need to meet people throughout the process at a varying levels to then end up with the right fit for where the business is at that moment. And responsiveness, we do our best to respond 12 to 24 hours. I don't think I've let much stretch past 24 hours, but it means getting back with people quickly. That means feedback, whether it's negative or positive. So anyway, those are some examples of how our values come through in an org. And we can move to the next. So in my world, I work with companies in the natural CPG space, right? There's some of them are early stage, super early stage. They're working on hiring their very first people, or growth stage, 10 to 50 million, could be even 50 to 100 million. Those companies have some more processes in place. So really in the very beginning, looking for things like, what is the foundation of the company? What are the strengths and weaknesses, skill set wise, of the founder? How can we complement those? How can we find people who are open to jumping in and being a little bit more of a generalist, a jack of all trades? So thinking about that versus when you get to a larger size, you're scaling, those folks are when you can bring in precision talent in. The head of marketing that's very specific to D2C, for one example, or a supply chain person who really understands nuances of raw material sourcing of herbs. And then that said, along the way, building a roadmap, super important from the get-go, like thinking about how to map things out today. How can these people evolve with the organization? When are we going to start adding layers? But it's important to think about it, right? It doesn't mean that we have to have a perfectly designed roadmap from day one, but to continue checkpoints in and really understand where we're going to be headed strategically is super important. Then we can move to holistic hiring. So this is one of my favorite points. This is when we're really thinking about a human being that's sitting in the seat across from us, right? One of the reasons why we started Orchid Holistic Search as a business is because we saw a broken model where it was, here is a resume with words on a paper, here is a job description with words on a paper, where do the words meet? And what we're missing here is that we have the opportunity to attract or repel people. We have an opportunity to build an engaged pool of brand evangelists, even when they don't end up getting hired. We have the ability to treat people like humans throughout the entire process, and that will make us stand out as an employer brand. So there's a few things here that I'll touch on. One is considering the whole human during interactions. They're people, not resumes. Things like going above and beyond, sending samples, responding to follow-ups, little touch points, keeping in touch with people, defining the process and being transparent. How is this interview process going to look? What rules are there going to be in our company for how we're going to move through the process on our end? Being clear and transparent with people, making an offer that is attractive, within or above range and ready. So it's really hard for a candidate to get to the final end of a job that they really want, and then for whatever reason, they're presented an offer that's way too low. So if you can't do these things well, a good idea could be to outsource the hire. Oftentimes, these hiring decisions can be very weighty, and it's nice to have a sounding board, someone else managing the process, someone else who's caretaking and shepherding all of the people along the way. And we'll talk about process, so I've touched on that a little bit. There's a couple of different things that I see pretty often. One would be winging it, and that would be, let's just, we need to hire. Shoot, we haven't thought about it too much. We're going to throw the job on LinkedIn. There's a lot of people on LinkedIn, right? So they're going to see our job and they want to work for us. Well, the problem is we get a lot of noise entering the system. We get 1,000 applicants. It's chaotic. We don't have time to screen all these people. We'll probably miss out on the top candidates. They might not even be actively looking on LinkedIn. Then you have kind of a negative perception in the market about your brand or culture due to all these communication misses, misalignment, compensation, or on the actual needs. The other side of it is really getting intentional when we're talking about building a process, making it as organized and effective as possible, talking through it before, how will this unfold? Looking for those top candidates who are probably not actively looking at the moment. That might be looking like poaching people from other businesses, which is what a recruiter can help you do. You're going to make sure during an intentional process to send out a beautiful representation and reflection of your brand and culture. That's through everything from your communication with people, through how the job description is presented, and make sure that the process is, efficient, but also quick, and increase visibility to candidate information. Be transparent once again. Great. So we'll move to biodiversity. So again, this is another area where I think LeiLani has a lot of experience and cares deeply, bringing in pieces of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging into an organization. This is important. This was talked about a lot about 5 years ago, right?
Mhm.
It's kind of fallen off a little bit. Have you seen that? I don't know if you've
Yeah, I mean, even in the
noticed it.
worlds that where we're certified in these spaces, there's a lot of the current environment is very heavily affected. But at the end of the day, I will always say it doesn't matter what's going on around you. It matters as a business and as leaders to continue to carry that flag, that it's important that people feel like they belong in an organization. And through that, you will find diverse hires, right? And the education of what that means and how to treat people. So I don't care what anyone says about what's happening with DEI. I will
That's right.
still call it that. Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. One thing, I guess the most important thing is to come into a process and thinking about building a team with, if you don't believe that biodiversity and diversity within a company will help an organization flourish, well, then there's really kind of no point in going through the motions, right? It has to come from within. It has to be real. You have to understand that people with beautiful, unique experiences and differences in background are what brings life to an organization. So with that, establishing clear goals and a commitment to trying to broaden our search pools, creating inclusive job descriptions. There are apps where you can, and AI too, where you can put in a job description and find out, oh, wow, this is heavily male coded, or this is heavily female coded. And you may want to bring that back into balance. The words that we use matter, right? And then building an inclusive onboarding. So it's great if we bring in people that are different than us, but unless they feel included and really valued in the organization, then it's really for naught. Don't do it because you just want those token hires of color. That would be silly. It defeats the point, and that person is going to notice immediately. Don't ignore feedback and accountability within the team, and don't rely on recruiting within your internal networks. What I see a lot of is companies asking their investors, hey, who should we hire? And they're all white men, so they bring white men to the table, and that's who the company hires. And then all of a sudden they call me and they say, oh, shoot, we hired a white male VP of sales, finance, ops. We really need a woman for marketing. It's what's happening to me on my desk today. So anyway, there are experts that really can help an organization develop a strong system for DEIB. In terms of checklists, I actually have a pretty comprehensive checklist. If anyone wants it, that can be something that I send out after the presentation. It will help you sort of set up a flow of what are our end goals and how will we get there, because in the end our goal is to win our number one candidate and have that candidate feel that we're the number one company. So a lot of these things that we've talked about with branding, with culture, with benefits, with humanizing the process, diversifying team, moving quickly, really just treating the people in your hiring world like humans will create the impact that you're looking for. So watch the magic unfold when you do all these things. It's not easy to do, but it's worth it.
No, it totally isn't. We've developed a guide called Hiring Your First Employee with Angela. So Angela and Orchid Holistic Search and Be the Change HR have it. And a lot of what you've heard today is in there. So I'm going to put a link to that. It's a form you would fill out, including if you want to receive that guide. We'd be happy to send it to you. And if you do fill that out, we'll make sure that you get in contact with Angela for her to give you the other worksheet that she has that can help you on this hiring journey. Great presentation, Angela. Thank you so much.